Welcome everybody to episode 2 of Fit Tips with Autumn. Quarantine is in full effect and the hair situation is a little crazy, but we're rolling with it. Autumn is making her rounds as usual. Today we're talking about the best ways to work out from home. Quarantine has been going on for a while now, and you've probably been forced to do most of your workouts from home. And if you're used to a lot of gym training with weights, body weight training can feel like it's not quite up to par. You're not quite getting the same results and it doesn't feel challenging. So we're going to talk about the best ways that you can work out from home to get the most bang from your buck. The first method that we're going to use to increase the effectiveness of your body weight workouts is isometrics, and more specifically something called overcoming isometrics. So even if you're not familiar with the term, you've probably done isometric exercises at some point that looks like planks or carrying heavy stuff, or there's always going to be an isometric portion of a movement during your lifts. An isometric is when your muscles are activated but your joints aren't moving. And so we're going to use that technique to increase the challenge of body weight workouts. And again, we're specifically going to use something called overcoming isometrics. And that technique is when you're trying to basically lift an immovable object. So think about loading up a barbell with more weight than you can lift and performing a deadlift on that, holding your muscles as tight as you can for a certain set period of time, and then relaxing. Or try to think about curling a tabletop, right? You're not actually going to move the tabletop, but you're flexing and contracting as hard as you can up against that for a certain period of time. So if you want to check out some examples of overcoming isometric exercises, you can go ahead and click right here to see some videos of that. But this is a great technique to not only improve strength, but also add muscle with no weight at all. If you're going to add this method into your routine, try programming sets of 5-6 second holds with 10-second rests in between those holds. The second method of in-home workouts to get the most bang for your buck is sprinting and walking. Walking has got to be the most underrated form of exercise that there is. I could go on and on about the list of benefits, but consider that it's a weight-bearing exercise. When you walk around, you have to carry your own body weight. So we're improving cardiovascular and pulmonary fitness, so that's heart and lungs, improved management of conditions like high blood pressure and high cholesterol, and it's going to be a great way to improve your posture. Getting up and actually walking around and moving is a great way to reset, especially if you spend a lot of time sitting. Sprinting is an awesome way to improve your conditioning, but sometimes gets a bad rap because people think that it might be unsafe or they're not quite in condition to sprint. So if you're worried about the risk-reward aspect of sprinting, we're going to talk a little bit about some ways that you can reduce the risk of injury while sprinting. As a general rule of thumb, you should never sprint at 100%. Even Olympic level sprinters rarely sprint at 100%. If you think about like your weight training, you don't often lift to a 1 rep max, right? We're doing 8 repetitions, 3 repetitions. In the same way, you should approach your sprinting. So we're sprinting at 60%, doing sprints at 80%, but never quite getting that full 100%, and that will greatly reduce the risk of pulling a muscle or some other form of injury while you're sprinting. The second way you can reduce the risk of injury during sprinting is by sprinting up a hill. First, it's going to slow you down, so again, we're not sprinting at that 100%. And second, the angle of the hill is going to put your body in a better position to avoid injury during sprinting. So because you're running up a hill, you have to have a little bit more forward lean, and your hip can't go into full extension. And both of those things are going to reduce the risk of injury, hamstring tears, and other things like that. And lastly, if you're concerned about injuries during sprinting, avoid sprinting from a dead start. So instead, gradually build up to the speed that you want to sprint at the distance you want to go. So we're starting from a jog, building up to say 60%, and then sprinting at that 60% for 50 meters. The third way that we're going to talk about to improve your at-home workouts is taking advantage of tempo and fatigue. At some point, your muscles are going to fatigue and you can't lift anymore, so we're going to take advantage of that. And then the second thing is tempo and changing the speed at which we lift. An example of using fatigue in your workouts would be to pre-fatigue a muscle before a set. So you can again use isometrics here. So if you're doing a set of body weight squats, before your set of say 10 squats, we'll have you hold the bottom position or the position where you have the most tension in your muscles. So again, for a squat, it's going to be near the bottom. We're going to hold that for 10 to 30 seconds, and you're going to start to feel the burn in that muscle, and then you're going to perform your 10 sets of squats. So you're going to feel quite a bit more challenge during that movement than you would for just the normal 10 reps of body weight squats. You can use this technique for any movement. Just hold the position where your muscles are under the most tension for, again, 10 to 60 seconds, depending on the size of the muscle groups. It's going to be a shorter time. For larger muscle groups, say your legs, it's going to be a longer time. And then perform your normal set. The simplest way to introduce tempo into your workouts is simply to slow down. So instead of performing reps where your tempo is 1 second lowering, 1 second in the bottom, and 1 second back up, we're going to increase the lowering portion of the lift, increase the whole portion of the lift, and we're going to keep the lifting portion of the movement normal. So the eccentric portion of the lowering portion, we're going to increase to 8 to 10 seconds. So on the push-up, that's going to be on the way down. And then for the isometric portion of the lift, which is going to be the bottom portion, before we start coming back up, we're going to hold that position for, again, 8 to 10 seconds. And then the pushing portion or the lifting portion of that movement, we're going to do at a normal speed. So if you combine those two aspects of tempo and fatigue, even if you're just doing body weight exercises, all of a sudden those are going to be way more challenging, and you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck as far as strength and muscle gains. Please like and comment below for how these methods work for you, and hit the subscribe button for more fit tips with Autumn.